Hey everyone, this is Mayan Writes. I'm Mayan. I talk all about writing and storytelling. Today I'm talking about Bojack Horseman and the perfect ending. So Bojack Horseman to me is the perfect show. It walks that thin line of dramedy without losing humor or intensity. The characters are realistic and complex, the plots are dynamic and compelling, the dialogues are clever and concise, the episode structure is innovative, the format of animation is brilliant. I could go on and on about this show, but trust me, at least in terms of storytelling, it's flawless. So if you don't know this show, and I recommend it if you didn't get it already, it's an animation show about this Hollywood kind of world where there are both animals and people living side by side. Bojack Horseman is the hero of the show. He's a washed-up 90s actor, over 50, and he is now trying to get by, trying to get more roles, wanting to stay in the spotlight despite being washed up. He has a drug abuse problem, alcohol abuse problems, and overall depression. So, why do I talk about this specifically? So, endings are very tricky. It can make or break a story, especially in long-running shows where we've been expecting the end for a while. We all remember shows that were ruined by the ending, like How I Met Your Mother and Lost. Endings are very difficult to tell in the right way. It needs to bring together many loose ends in a way that will fit with what we've been telling from the beginning, while making sense and creating an emotional impact. It's like the perfect storm. It's Mission Impossible, basically. This is why many stories fail, but not Bojack Horseman. So let's start with what makes a great ending. To me, there are three things. The first one is that it follows a certain expectation. Now, there are genre expectations, right? For example, in a rom-com, the lovers will always end up together. In a mystery, there will always be some answers by the end. These are things that the genre dictates. We can't really move away from that unless you want to piss off people. Another kind of expectation is the direction the story takes from the beginning. Then the ending needs to echo that direction. It's a promise made to the reader or viewer. Once you made a story promise, going in a different direction just for shock value will also piss people off. That's what I think happened in How I Met Your Mother. So they made these two mistakes exactly. From the very beginning, from the very first episode, you were told that the mom was not Robin, and for a million seasons after that, we got endless reasons why Robin and Ted can't be together. And then in the end, they just end up together. I mean, you've been telling us from the beginning that's not going to work. Why just do the opposite of what you were telling just to surprise us? To me, that's just a spit in the face. And then they kill off the love interest. I mean, that does not work in a rom-com. It just does not work. So I feel like the story basically betrayed itself. And yes, there was a big surprise and shock value, but I think it cost them the overall acceptance of the show. Now with Bojack, there were very clear lines of story and characters and where this was going. And that's why the ending was very, very satisfying. So I'm going to spoil the show, of course. So throughout the show, Bojack hurts a lot of people, right? Mostly under the influence. So there is Penny, the 17-year-old he almost sleeps with. There is Sarah Lynn, his former co-worker, former co-star that OD'd during their bender. There's Gina that he assaulted under the influence, that it was also his co-worker and his girlfriend. Then by the end of season 5, he goes to rehab finally. And then season 6 is a story, that's the final season, that's a story about how he goes out of rehab, he's rehabilitating himself, he doesn't drink anymore, he's clean, he gets out of show business, he gets a job, he finds a job at his sister's college to be an acting teacher. Life seems to be going the right direction, but then the past never dies, right? It's back to haunt him. The stories of everything that he did comes to light by two reporters, and this just makes everything go downhill, right? So Hollyhock, his sister, finds out. She shuts him out of her life. He starts drinking again. He loses his house. He gets sued. He almost drowns in a pool in a pre-finale episode that was one of the most core-shaking viewings I've ever experienced. He serves some jail time. His best friend Diane moves away. And so he loses a lot of stuff. He loses on friendships, he loses on relationships, he loses money, but he wins his life, his sanity, and his sobriety. And he gains new appreciation for his new life, even though it lacks many of the things that made him happy in the beginning. So why is this expected? Well, from the very first episodes, right, he struggles with self-hatred and self-destruction and addiction. And it's clear from the beginning that, he's either going to be, the end will either be destruction or redemption. These were the two clear options, right? And the show made thorough groundwork to show us that both of these options are very, very valid, right? He could either redeem himself, even though he can't change the past, or he could sink deeper into destruction and ruin himself. And what happens in the end is kind of like both, right? He loses a lot, but he still manages to save himself. So this is fair, right? I want a fair ending, an ending that makes sense, that kind of correlates with everything that I was told up until now. So this is the expectation. The second thing is the impact. So it raises the question, if you want to be expecting the end, how can you still make it impactful? If there's no surprise, how can you still make it emotionally impactful? So because of this ending, this bittersweet ending, he goes to jail, right? He doesn't serve a lot of time. He loses friends, he loses family. But then, like I said, he gains, perspective, and he gains his sanity, his sobriety. It's still very, very emotional. And I think we go through this journey with him of actually becoming this new person throughout the 6th season, becoming this new person and really getting better, but then seeing that he still needs to pay for everything that he did. And that is very, very emotional because it hurts. It hurts him and it hurts us to watch it. But then he's able to live with that and he moves on. And that is very, very satisfying to watch. So I think even though there isn't a shocking surprise, it's still very, very satisfying emotionally. So what the ending accomplished is very complicated. It was fair, but it was pretty much expected. It was slightly surprising, but very, very satisfying. I didn't feel cheated as a viewer, like when I watched Lost, for example. So with Lost, there was the promise from the very beginning was there will be answers that will explain everything. You will understand everything in the end. And that was not delivered, right? The answers didn't make sense at all, but the ending was very emotional, right? I think this is a cheap trick that writers do to cover for a crappy ending. They make everything super sad and super emotional and super upsetting, so you're too devastated emotionally to pay attention. Don't do that. Respect the reader. Now, the final thing I want to say about this, the third parameter I see for good endings, is that it fits perfectly with the themes of the story. So with Bojack, from the very first season of the show, we discuss what is a good person, or what is our quote-unquote deep down. I think the ending echoes this beautifully, showing that just because you stopped drinking and got a real job doesn't mean you're actually better or a good person, or that everything you did is fixed. It also says that you can still be a good person if you can fix past mistakes. You can move on and try to be good in the future. There isn't really a good person or a bad person. There is only what you do in the moment. Why is this important? Because when an ending fits with a theme that is structured around it, it gives you a meaningful experience. You kind of feel like you were taking on a journey, that there was a destination that was planned all along. Another ending that does this beautifully is Shutter Island, and I'm going to spoil it, be aware. So in the end, Teddy, our hero, discovers that he's actually the patient that he was looking for all along. He's basically the quote-unquote villain, right? Because he's a mental patient in an institution, and he was just delusioned, thinking he's a detective. And in the end, he's taken to be lobotomized because of this condition, this mental condition. And he says to his doctor, he asks him, is it better to die a good man or to live as a monster? And this is kind of echoes on the entire mystery, because he was under this delusion of being a good man because he didn't want to believe what he really is, which is a murderer and a mental patient. And this kind of wraps everything up in a way that just ties everything together to say something, to say one thing, and that gives the story meaning. That's basically it. So there are three things. There is the expectation, there is the impact, the emotional impact, and there is the theme. I think these three make for great endings. And yes, while good endings are very, very hard to to do, they're very much possible. I think it's all about really respecting your reader and understanding that they're taking on a journey. They're having the experience, and I think you need to take that under consideration, and I don't think every writer does. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to me. I'm most active on Instagram. In the meantime, happy writing.